ready to dive deep into the story of the University of California.
I'm ready.
We're talking about how it went from like a small private college to this like global powerhouse.
Yeah.
Even with all the crazy ups and downs along the way.
Oh, yeah.
We've got excerpts from their Wikipedia page, so
Right.
Get ready for some like behind the scenes looks.
I think people might be surprised to learn that the UC system, I mean, it wasn't always this, public giant.
Right.
It actually started as this kind of merger.
Oh, okay.
It was almost like a shotgun wedding,
Okay.
between this struggling private college and a state-funded agricultural school.
Okay.
But get this, it only existed like on paper.
Wait, hold on. A school that didn't even have a building.
Yeah.
How does that even like work?
Well, it was the 1860s.
Oh, right.
California was still pretty wild back then.
Yeah.
The College of California, they had these big dreams of becoming a full-fledged university, but
Yeah.
they were, barely keeping their heads above water.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the state had this idea for an agricultural college.
Yeah.
But no real plan on how to make it happen.
So they basically said, hey, you guys got the brains, we got some theoretical money,
Right.
let's team up.
Exactly. And that's where Governor Frederick Lowe enters the picture.
Okay.
He was a big advocate for what they call the University of Michigan plan.
Okay.
And that focused on combining like the traditional academics with practical training.
So like what, engineering along with literature?
Yeah, like think engineering along with literature, agriculture alongside philosophy.
Gotcha.
That was a pretty radical idea at the time,
Yeah, I bet.
especially, out on the frontier.
Right, right. So was Lowe the one who like really pushed for UC to, to use this model?
He was definitely a key champion, no doubt. But we can't forget about those trustees from, that struggling College of California.
Right, yeah.
They were shrewd negotiators.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they knew they had something valuable, even if it was a little cash-strapped.
Yeah.
So when they agreed to this merger, they made sure that the resulting institution, it would be a true university,
Right.
not just like a glorified vocational school.
Yeah.
They saw the value of a, broad education.
Yeah.
Even way back then.
So they really planted the seeds for what UC would become.
They did.
But it wasn't all like smooth sailing, right?
Right.
I mean, this whole thing with Hastings College of the Law,
Yeah.
it always seemed kind of weird to me.
Yeah, Hastings. It's a bit of an odd duck in the UC family.
Right.
Technically, it's affiliated with UC,
Okay.
but it isn't governed by the regents.
Okay.
Unlike UCSF.
So like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Why is it like different?
Well, it all goes back to some legal quirks, in how Hastings was originally affiliated with UC.
Oh, okay.
They did it through state law,
Okay.
not just a written agreement like some of the other professional schools.
Okay.
And this like seemingly minor detail,
Yeah.
it had some major consequences down the line.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
What kind of consequences does it like affect the students at Hastings?
That's the interesting part. For the most part, it doesn't.
Okay.
Hastings students, they still get UC degrees.
Right.
They can access some UC resources. Sometimes these little, quirks in history, they can have surprising consequences.
Right.
But let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
We've talked about, UC's early years,
Right.
but it wasn't always this, research powerhouse, was it?
Yeah, that's a good point. When did research become such a big part of like UC's identity?
That shift, it really started to take shape back in the 1930s
Okay.
under President Robert Gordon Sproul.
Okay.
He had this vision, of UC
Yeah.
as not just a place to learn, but a place to actually generate knowledge that could benefit society.
Yeah.
It was a bold move.
I could see how that would be a big change.
Yeah.
Especially for a university that was still, relatively young.
It was.
Yeah.
And this focus on research,
Yeah.
it really laid the groundwork for UC's rise to prominence in the scientific world.
Right.
It was no longer just about educating students.
Yep.
It was about, pushing the boundaries of knowledge.
Right.
And this shift, it's further cemented in 1960
Okay.
with the California Master Plan for Higher Education,
Right.
which officially designated UC as the state's primary agency for research.
So like a real turning point.
A real turning point.
So from struggling private college to, research powerhouse, UC was really on the move.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't help but like think about that rivalry everyone talks about.
Right.
Berkeley versus UCLA.
Yeah.
How does that play into like UC's evolution?
Yes.
Yeah.
The North-South rivalry.
Yeah.
You can't talk about UC without, acknowledging that dynamic.
Right.
As Los Angeles grew in the early 20th century,
Yeah.
so did its university,
Okay.
the Southern Branch, which
Right.
later became UCLA.
Right.
And with that growth came a desire for, more recognition,
Right.
more autonomy. People in LA, they wanted their university to have the same prestige and influence as Berkeley.
I wonder how like Berkeley reacted to UCLA's, growing ambitions. Was it seen as a threat or did they like welcome the competition?
Well, there was definitely some tension.
Yeah.
I mean, Berkeley was the original UC campus.
Right.
And they weren't exactly thrilled about sharing the spotlight.
Yeah.
But the pressure from Southern California was just too strong to ignore. I mean, after all, they were becoming, a major economic and political force in the state.
So like how did this power struggle play out?
Yeah.
Did UCLA like managed to break free from Berkeley's shadow?
Well, that, my friend, is a story for part 2. But let me just say, it involves some, bold personalities, some strategic power plays, and ultimately a dramatic restructuring of the entire UC system.
All right, well, I guess we'll have to wait for part 2.
You will. Welcome back. Last time we left you with that epic rivalry brewing between Berkeley and UCLA. So let's pick up the story there. How did this tension shape the UC system we know today?
Yeah, I'm like dying to know what happened. Did they have some sort of academic duel? A mascot showdown?
Not quite, but it did get pretty dramatic. Remember we talked about how UCLA was pushing for more autonomy,
Yeah.
more recognition as a true equal to Berkeley. Well, in 1951, UC went through, a reorganization,
Okay.
and UCLA officially got a chancellor
Okay.
and was designated as co-equal with Berkeley.
Sounds good, right?
Sure, on paper it sounds like, a win for UCLA, but I have a feeling it wasn't that simple.
You're right. The problem was this co-equal status. It was a bit vague. The 1951 plan, it didn't really define how much power these chancellors actually had. And you might imagine President Sproul, who was very much a Berkeley man,
Right.
he wasn't exactly eager to give up control.
So basically they just put a new label on the same old power structure.
Pretty much.
Wow. The rivalry, it continued to simmer. It took a new president, Clark Kerr, to truly shake things up.
Yeah.
He came on board in 1957, and he had, a very different vision for UC.
Okay, so tell me about Clark Kerr. What was his, grand plan?
Kerr, he was a bold reformer. He saw that, the centralized system with everything revolving around Berkeley,
Yeah.
it was holding UC back. He wanted to empower the individual campuses.
Okay.
Let them develop their own unique strengths and identities. His idea was to create a true multi-campus system,
Right.
where each campus had, a real sense of ownership and control.
So kind of like a family with each member having their own personality,
Mhm.
but still being part of something bigger.
Exactly. And Kerr's reforms, they really put this idea into action. He gave chancellors real executive authority,
Okay.
decentralized the bureaucracy, and really laid the foundation for the UC system we know today.
Yeah.
It was a radical departure from the way things had always been done.
But wait, didn't we say UCLA already had a chancellor?
Right.
What was different about, Kerr's approach?
Under Sproul, the chancellors, they didn't have much real power. They were more figureheads.
Oh, okay.
Kerr changed that. He gave them the authority to make decisions, to set their own course, to really shape the direction of their campuses.
Right.
He believed that, this decentralization, it would unleash the full potential of each campus
Yeah.
and ultimately make the entire UC system stronger.
Okay, so Kerr's shaking things up,
Yeah.
pushing for decentralization,
Yeah.
but not everyone was on board with his vision, right? What about that UCLA Chancellor, Murphy? He wanted even more autonomy for the campuses.
Oh, absolutely. Murphy, he was a fierce advocate for UCLA's independence. His idea was to, make UC a confederation of independent schools,
Sure.
almost like a loose alliance rather than a unified system.
Okay.
He argued that this would give each campus, even more freedom to pursue its own goals and priorities.
I can see how that would be appealing to UCLA, always striving to break free from Berkeley's shadow.
Mm,
So Kerr's vision versus Murphy's vision,
it was.
a battle for the soul of UC.
It was a pivotal moment. And in the end, Kerr's vision prevailed.
Yep.
He argued that UC, it was stronger as a unified system with shared resources and a common purpose. He saw the value in collaboration and cooperation between the campuses while still allowing for, individual distinctiveness. It's fascinating to think about how things might have turned out differently if Murphy's vision had won out.
Yeah, a whole network of completely independent UC schools. That's a pretty wild thought.
Yeah.
But back to Kerr's plan. Wasn't it also under his leadership that UC started expanding even more?
Yeah.
Creating new campuses.
Absolutely. And that's, another key part of his legacy. Remember how we talked about Davis, Riverside, and some of
Yeah.
the other campuses starting out as basically satellite locations of Berkeley? Well, Kerr saw their potential and elevated them to, full-fledged campuses.
He believed that UC had a responsibility to serve, the entire state of California,
Yeah.
not just a few, select regions.
So it wasn't just about decentralizing the existing system,
Right.
but also about expanding UC's reach and impact. It sounds like a golden age for the university.
It was.
But there had to be challenges along the way, right?
Right.
Nothing stays perfect forever.
You're right. And one of the biggest challenges UC has faced and continues to face is funding.
Right.
It's a story that, takes us right into the heart of some of the controversies we'll be discussing in part 3.
Okay, I have a feeling this is where things get even more interesting. Funding issues, controversies. I'm ready to hear more.
Well, before we get into those thorny topics,
Yeah.
let's take a quick detour
Okay.
and explore something a little different.
Okay.
Remember how we mentioned that UC is involved in some pretty surprising ventures?
Yeah, you piqued my curiosity with that one. What are we talking about here? Secret societies. Huh?
Time travel experiments.
Not quite that exciting, but pretty close. We're talking about things like managing national laboratories for the Department of Energy,
Yeah.
operating, world-class observatories,
Right.
and overseeing a vast network of natural reserves.
Hold on, national labs,
Yeah.
like top secret science stuff.
Yeah.
UC is involved in that.
Oh, yeah. Big time. They manage 3 national labs for the Department of Energy.
Wow.
These are places where some of the most, cutting edge research in the world is happening.
Yeah.
Everything from nuclear physics to climate change to renewable energy.
Wow, I had no idea. So not only do they educate students and do research, but they're also involved in national security and scientific breakthroughs that are like shaping the future.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how much influence UC has.
It's pretty mind-boggling, right?
Yeah.
And that's not all. They also operate, prestigious observatories like Lick and Keck, where astronomers are making groundbreaking discoveries about the universe. And then there's the UC Natural Reserve System, a vast network of, protected areas dedicated to ecological research and conservation. It's an incredible resource for scientists studying everything from climate change to biodiversity.
Okay, I'm starting to see why you said UC is more than just a bunch of campuses.
Yeah.
It's like a sprawling, multifaceted institution.
It is.
With its fingers in all sorts of pies, some of them pretty unexpected.
Yeah.
But let's get back to those funding challenges you mentioned.
Right.
How did those start to impact UC, especially, as it was growing and expanding?
Well, for a long time, UC prided itself on being tuition-free for California residents.
Yeah.
It was a core part of their mission, their commitment to making higher education accessible to all.
Yeah.
But, things started to change in the late 20th century, particularly after the passage of Proposition 13 in 1978.
Proposition 13, that was the one that put limits on property taxes, right?
Yeah.
I remember hearing about that.
Yeah.
And that had a huge impact on UC's funding.
Right.
They had relied heavily on property tax revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly that source of income, it was drastically reduced.
Yeah.
They had to find ways to make up for the shortfall. And that's when those, fees started to creep in.
So those fees were basically tuition in disguise.
Pretty much. For years, UC, they danced around the issue, insisting that they weren't charging tuition.
Right.
But eventually, they had to face reality.
Mm-hmm.
In 2010, they officially renamed the educational fee as tuition.
Okay.
It was a symbolic moment marking the end of an era.
It sounds like the beginning of a whole new set of challenges for UC.
It was.
And I'm guessing those controversies you mentioned are tied into this, like, funding crunch.
You guessed it. And those controversies, they raised some tough questions about, access, affordability, and the very soul of public education.
Yeah.
But we'll save those for the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
Stay tuned. All right, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the University of California.
Yeah.
We've seen how it evolved from, like, humble beginnings to, a research powerhouse.
Right.
But as we hinted at, those funding challenges we talked about,
Yeah.
they've really led to some sticky situations, controversies, to put it mildly.
Yeah, these are tough issues that go beyond just dollars and cents.
Right.
They get to the heart of what UC is supposed to be about.
Yeah.
Who gets access, who benefits, and how much does it cost?
Okay, so lay it out for me. What are some of the most contentious issues facing UC these days?
Well, one that always gets people fired up is the whole question of out-of-state admissions.
Right.
You see, as UC's state funding started to, dwindle after Proposition 13, they began actively recruiting more students from outside California.
Because out-of-state students pay a lot more in tuition, right?
Exactly. It's a way to bring in some much-needed revenue. But it's also created this perception that qualified California students are being, squeezed out
Right.
to make room for these, these higher-paying out-of-staters.
I could see how that would rub people the wrong way, especially with so many talented students right here in California, vying for those limited spots.
It's a balancing act for sure.
Yeah.
UC argues that they need to attract the best and brightest, from everywhere to maintain their global reputation.
Right.
But critics say that their primary responsibility should be to the residents of California,
Yeah.
the taxpayers who support the system.
So it's about priorities,
Yeah.
right? Serving California versus maintaining this elite global standing.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And this tension between, serving the state and aiming for global prestige,
Right.
it kind of spills over into other issues too.
Sure.
For example, in 2008, UC's accreditor,
Yeah.
the Western Association of Schools and Colleges, they actually came down pretty hard on them about their governance structure.
Wait, seriously. What did they find wrong with how UC is run?
They issued this scathing report
Yeah.
saying that UC had significant problems in governance, leadership, and decision-making.
Wow.
Basically, they felt that the roles and responsibilities of the president, the regents, and the chancellors
Right.
weren't, clear enough.
Okay.
And this led to confusion, a lack of accountability, and ultimately it hampered their ability to address some of these big challenges effectively.
So it wasn't just about money.
Right.
It was about how the whole system is structured.
Exactly. Managing a massive decentralized institution like UC is incredibly complex.
Right.
And this critique from their accreditor really highlighted the need for more clarity, more transparency,
Yeah.
and maybe even some restructuring at the top.
It makes you wonder if some of those other issues we've talked about, the out-of-state admissions,
Yeah.
might be symptoms of these deeper governance problems.
It's certainly possible. But let's not forget about another controversy that rocked UC a few years back.
Right.
The whole thing with UC monitoring emails on their servers.
Wait. They were reading people's emails?
Well, it's a bit more complicated than that.
Okay.
UC officials insisted that they weren't, reading individual emails, but rather using automated systems to scan for keywords and potential security threats.
Okay. But even so, it feels a little creepy, doesn't it? Like Big Brother is watching.
It definitely raised a lot of eyebrows.
Yeah.
People were concerned about privacy, about free speech, about whether, this kind of monitoring was really necessary.
Right.
It sparked a whole debate about, the balance between security and individual rights.
Right.
A debate that is still ongoing in many ways.
It feels like that's a theme with a lot of these controversies.
Yeah.
They touch on these like bigger societal questions that we're all, grappling with.
Absolutely. Issues of access, affordability, transparency, privacy.
Yeah.
These are all, fundamental values that any public institution, especially one as influential as UC, needs to wrestle with.
Right.
And there are no easy answers.
So what's the takeaway here? We've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
From UC's early days to these complex challenges they face today.
I think the biggest takeaway is that, UC, for all its accomplishments and its global prestige,
Yeah.
it's still a work in progress.
Okay.
It's a constantly evolving institution,
Right.
grappling with its own legacy,
Right.
trying to find its place in a rapidly changing world.
Yeah.
And the controversies we've discussed, they're not just UC's problems. They
Yeah.
reflect, broader societal tensions
Yeah.
that we all need to engage with.
So what's next for UC? Where do they go from here?
Well, that's the $1 million question.
Yeah.
They need to find a way to balance their commitment to California with their aspirations for global impact.
Right.
They need to address these concerns about access, affordability, and governance. And they need to do all of this while maintaining their commitment to academic excellence.
Yeah.
And pushing the boundaries of knowledge.
No small tasks, right?
It's a tall order.
Yeah.
But if any institution can pull it off, it might just be UC.
Yeah.
After all, they've overcome some pretty incredible challenges in their history. And who knows, maybe some of the solutions to these big problems, will come from the very students and researchers who are walking those hallowed halls today.
I guess that's something to think about.
Yeah.
So there you have it, folks. The story of UC, a story of ambition, innovation, and yes, even controversy. We've just scratched the surface here.
Right.
But we hope this deep dive has given you some, new insights and maybe even inspired you to dig a little deeper on your own.
Right.
After all, learning is a lifelong journey, and there's always more to discover, especially when it comes to a complex and fascinating institution like the University of California. Thanks for joining us.